As people retire, they start considering downsizing because they're empty nesters. They have retired, they don't really need the big house anymore.
Or some of them are even just overwhelmed with the upkeep and the maintenance of the property. They just realize they have too much empty space. So let's get into 5 reasons how you can find happiness when you downsize.
And you can find it. The mere mention of downsizing to your spouse or your kids can create stress, unhappiness, anxiety, and at times feelings of just being totally overwhelmed.
We know way too many people who refuse to even talk about it, and it's just not helpful at all.
Now, if one partner wants to downsize and the other won't even speak of it, you've entered a slippery slope and you might be in for a rough time together.
Downsizing your possessions has become a really popular topic in our retirement community, and rightly so.
And today, we're going to get to the bottom of the benefits of downsizing and how it can bring you newfound freedom and joy into your lives. My name is Mark Rollins.
And I'm Jody Rollins, and we started Retirement Transformed in 2017, not only for us, but for all of you and the 10,000 people turning 65 every day.
Now, we don't focus on the financial aspects of retirement, but rather lifestyle, health, relationships, and more.
And listen, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when our videos come out.
Now, let's talk about our clients, Janet and Robert. They both had successful careers. They both were looking forward to this phase of life, but both were on different pages when it came to downsizing.
They had 3 children and they had all moved out. All of the children were married. I think 2 of them had grandchildren. 2 of the children lived nearby, but one of them did have to travel and stay with them when they came to visit.
Right. Now, their 5-bedroom house, that served them well for a long time. But the question is, do they really need that big house now?
And if you think about it, they live in the Northeast where the summers are hot, the winters are cold, and energy costs are through the roof. Maybe you have a similar situation.
So what they started to do, like a lot of people start to do with a big house, is they started turning down the heat and the air conditioning in half the house. They did that to save on energy costs. But it's been 2 years now, and it's rare that they ever use that space or turn the heat or air conditioning back on.
He was ready to downsize, and he really pushed it, utilizing many of the points we listed above to convince his wife, Janet, on the fact that it was the right time.
But Janet didn't even want to talk about it.
Right.
She wanted to keep the house and all the belongings because of all the memories that took place there, because of all the available space when the kids visited. She was putting it off, pushing the topic down the road, even though intuitively she knew it was the right thing to do.
The trap they fell into, which soured really the happiness connection to downsizing, was twofold. First, they were not on the same page, so there was resistance to any decision making. And there was a resistance to even talking about it. The result of that was unhappiness, stress, and a lot of anxiety.
Secondly, while they made small attempts to rid themselves of many possessions,
I think he did that on the side.
I think he did, the Amazon box started to show up. Not only replacing the stuff they got rid of, but really updating much of what they shed anyway, the new and better version of something.
Now, with our help, they're now starting to talk about it and make some progress and experiencing little wins in their downsizing efforts, which is bringing them happiness.
And listen, as people retire, they start considering downsizing because they're empty nesters. They have retired, they don't really need the big house anymore.
Or some of them are even just overwhelmed with the upkeep and the maintenance of the property. They just realize they have too much empty space. So let's get into 5 reasons how you can find happiness when you downsize.
And you can find it. The first reason there is to find happiness in downsizing are the financial benefits. You're going to reduce your expenses, you're going to have better cash flow, and it's also going to enable you to put some of the proceeds from the house into your retirement assets.
A good hard look at this with your financial planner may bring clarity and motivation that you need to get started. The second reason downsizing can make you happy is Plain and simply, you reduce clutter.
The thing is, you've got to want to get rid of clutter, but living around clutter is difficult. Downsizing is a great motivating factor for embracing simplicity of life. It gives you a chance to take some of the things that you're not using anymore and put it back into your community or a charity so they can be used by someone that really needs them.
Researchers at Princeton University Neuroscience Institute studied, in fact, how clutter affects cognitive function. And here's what they found. They found that clearing clutter from your work and home environments boosts the ability to concentrate and process information. Think about that for a second. The study goes on to say that people who worked and lived in a clutter-free environment were less irritable, more productive, and much less distracted.
That's me, right? I've cleaned the drawer in my bedside table last week, and look how much better of a person I am.
Guy couldn't find his passport on Monday.
The third way to find joy or happiness in downsizing is to simplify your lifestyle. A smaller home is going to mean less stuff and things, which is going to equate to more freedom and time. Smaller space is easier to care for. And if you have a smaller piece of property, it's less time on chores.
And if you think about everything that it's less of, it adds more time for people and relationships. There's just simply joy in simplifying and creating space for new experiences. The fourth and final way you can find happiness in downsizing, now stick with me on this, but is for better health. Did you know that?
I did know that. I'm healthier because I cleaned the drawer last week.
Because here's the thing. If you agree that downsizing is connected to simplicity, then it's important to note that there's a strong association with acquiring and holding on to possessions and poor health and low levels of happiness.
That happens to me all the time. When I look at something that I've had for 20 years that I own and I hold on to it, but I don't use it, it does actually stress me out. It weighs on you. It does. But conversely, there was a study from the University of Science in PA that found that 90% of people who shifted to a simpler lifestyle as they got older had improved health and happiness, not only themselves, but in their relationships.
Now listen, we're not trying to make it sound easy. We know downsizing is hard. Sometimes even the word downsizing has people feel like you're going to make me live with less. But the phase of life that you're in right now affords you the time to, use a new word, right-size your world. And we want to encourage this for you. And we want to encourage you to test your boundaries with right-sizing. Test your boundaries with the connections you have with your possessions that I call stuff and things. Test your boundaries on when you let something go, does it really affect your happiness in a positive way?
Now look, where do you start? We suggest starting small. One room at a time, one drawer at a time. But if one of you is okay with shedding stuff and things and downsizing, by all means begin with your own stuff. Try under the kitchen sink or do all the bathroom sinks. Tackle a few drawers, or even a hall closet, or your own closet. As you start to clear it out and get rid of things and donate it, you're going to feel this joy come alive inside of you because your life is simpler and someone else gets to use some of the things that you're giving away.
I think really the message there is start with things that aren't emotionally tied to your spouse or partner. Do your own things first, and I think you'll be surprised. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I think you'll be surprised on how you feel. I stuttered because Mark tried to downsize under my sink. Gentlemen, I would not encourage you to do that.
I didn't downsize, I organized.
You downsized.
But I still have my Boy Scout uniform from when I was 14.
I already got rid of
You
it.
didn't. And I don't want to get rid of it. But you know what? I got to get rid of it.
I think it's time.
Listen,
Mark actually wore that for Halloween a couple years ago.
Listen, if you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. Right. And also please subscribe by clicking the subscribe button. We love being with you as much as we can, so please do that.
And finally, join our free Facebook community. The link is in the notes below.
Thank you guys for listening, and we look forward to being with you again soon.